treat in front of us for the next number of minutes. And all of you, at least the third formers among us, have been enjoyed Mr. Ferris' talk a little while ago. So to extend that, going forward, we have three in addition to Mr. Ferris, distinguished guests with us. Really to talk about their lives in the arts with you, ways that might trigger some thoughts for you as you think about your own interests in the arts, and career paths, and destinations. And ultimately, the hope is that you'll have lots of questions as they reveal their stories and journeys to you in different areas and fields within the arts. So just quickly, who are these folks? Mr. Ferris, you know, he was here a little while ago, class of 1960, a folklorist without parallel, perhaps, in the United States. So it's an incredible honor to have him here today and know what more to share. Amanda Dubois was the only person on this panel who I remember as a student. Graduated 20 years ago. I don't know if I had her in the class or not. I did. How about that? It was memorable for her.
Favorite class.
Look at that. And she's been working in the theater for a long, long time. So for those of you interested in that, she'll have lots to share. Catherine Truman, class of 1985. In architecture, and she, for many years, worked for Ann Beha, who is the firm that we're working with on our arts facility at the moment, and more recently has gone out and done architectural work on her own. And then finally, Chip Norton, class of 1965, who's been an art teacher at Buckingham Brown and Nichols School for 30 years? More than 30 years. And so I will turn it over to Chip, who's going to moderate a bit, but enjoy and think of all your good questions. Thank you for being here.
So I teach third formers, that we call ninth graders, but I know exactly your brains are sitting here saying, is this going to be interesting or what? I think it will be. But first, you got to participate a little bit. This is going to take you being honest. Okay, how many of you actually personally know an artist? Put your hands up. Now let's hear 3 or 4 examples of who you know. Come on, help me. Anybody? All right, where? Back corner. Miss Graham. That's a very good answer. That'll get you points. The thing is, she is a teacher, but she's an artist also, and she is an artist also. That's a good answer. But how about you? I saw your hand go up. Right?
Does that like a famous artist?
No, just a...
Can I say myself?
All right, somebody else. Come on. Guys, what is an artist? Who are we? All right, we're just three people that we love the arts. 4 people that love the arts, but there are so many kinds of arts in the world that you just can't believe it. And I think if you actually stop and think about who you know that makes something creative, that first moment where you actually create something for yourself, you take a risk. You make it with your own hands or perhaps on a screen, and you have that pleasure, that amazing pleasure of, oh my God, I made this thing. It didn't have to come into being. B.B. King sings a song, he has to sing it. You have to make something. You feel that impulse to make something. That's one kind of art. And I'll bet within your own lives you've done that at some point. You know, design a football play, that's a piece of art, right? Create some environment, that's a piece of art. Stage a performance, it's a piece of art. Okay. So I'm gonna moderate a little bit, talk less in the beginning, but why don't you go ahead and just talk a little bit about what it takes to make art, how you got here, who you were here once, and now you're sitting here, and that little journey that happened. This is kind of interesting, maybe, for you guys to hear this. Yeah.
When I was sort of asked to present, how I got where I am, sort of like 17 scenarios that I could kind of go down the pathway. And, one of them was, what role did arts play at Brooks? And kind of, honestly, I didn't actually consider myself an artist at all when I was at Brooks. I never took a fine arts course. I never set foot in the art studio. And that's not, so my path didn't start that way. To kind of go to your point about like, what is art? What I do as an architect and what I found when I was here was a lot of it's problem solving, creative problem solving. And when I was here, I was really into math and physics. I also, and I think we'll end up with the same, we're gonna end up with a lot of the same stuff, I think. I also found art history in what at then was called art appreciation, was kind of a gut, and I took simply because my mother used to beat me at Trivial Pursuit all the time, and she would know things like which 19th century artist cut off his ear, and I'd be like, how do you know this stuff? She's like, I've got 5 years on you, I've had some time. So I took art appreciation, which is technically, I think it's really art history, with Mr. Kang, and fell completely and totally in love, because it was a subject matter where there were pictures. And I used to sit in history class in English, and there were all these words and words and words and words and words, and I couldn't make sense of them. But when I suddenly started to figure out that there were pictures involved with history, it made a lot of sense. And I loved about math and physics was they were all graphic. You'd sit there and you'd be drawing like sine curves and cosine curves and charting things and making vector diagrams and little things, balls flying off cliffs and all that other stuff. And it was all visual. And I didn't have any idea that those were the sorts of things I was gravitating to. They were the things that I was taking from an education kit. Kind of like rambling right now, but the thing that I found about those subjects and what I was finding when I was at Brooks in one particular class was that the creative problem-solving process was really what I do as an architect, and it was this one particular class in AP Physics, which you'll all get to eventually, physics, but there was this one problem where we had to design a bridge, and it was, we were given, Mr. Moore gave us, and even after 30 years, I still can't remember their first names, there's still Mr. Moore, gave us X numbers of pieces of basswood and said you have to have this bridge and it has to be 28 to 30 inches long and 7 inches high and 2 inches wide. You can have 1 or 2 points of contact. It has to support whatever hundreds of pounds it had to support. And suddenly it was about problem solving, a design challenge and trial and error to get that problem solved the same way that you do trial and error in physics and in math. And so art is not just necessarily painting or drawing or singing or performing or photography. It's this other process that you engage in all sorts of other fields that can then lead you somewhere completely different. But I don't know, I'm rambling.
Good start.
Okay, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay.
Sorry.
I only know that that's what physics and math is about. I might have done better. But anyway, I did do theater at Brooks, and I did a lot of theater. I did all the plays that I could do. And I knew that I loved the community that existed within a theater. I knew that I loved telling stories inside the theater. And I always thought I would grow up and be an actress. And it's actually Michael Walzak, and I can still see the conversation happening in the auditorium where he was like, "You're going to be a producer." And I was like, no, I'm going to be an actress. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to study how to performance. And he's like, no. He's like, I can see it. 10 years. I'm going to come see you. You're going to be like, the tickets are at the box office. I'm way too busy to have coffee, but see the show, enjoy it, and I'll talk to you later. And he's right. That's exactly what happened. Had I only taken his advice, I would have not had as circuitous a journey. But I went to college. I studied performance. I studied education because I thought that it would be fun to be a teaching artist because you need a survival job when you're going to be an actress. So I thought it would be fun to be a teaching artist during the day and then I could perform at night, which I didn't realize meant getting up at 8 a.m. to teach small children about appreciation of theater. And so that didn't last very long. But I then put on a show with some friends, and the most fun part of it all was putting it together. And it was, again, that community and telling that story. And I realized, wow, that's actually the part I really, really like, why don't I do that? So it was very easy to then decide, okay, I'm going to go work for a production company, be an assistant, and figure out how this business works. And I think that that's the thing that you can keep in mind, is that maybe you don't have a great voice, maybe you're not a great dancer, maybe you don't love performing, but you love being in the building, you love that group of people. And when you get out in the world, it's very diverse, the different ways that you can be an artist. You can, and it's not even that you're just supporting art by working in marketing for theater, let's say, because you really are doing that same creative problem solving that the producer's doing, that the actor's even doing, or the director's doing, just on a different level. And they're all pieces that work together.
Well, in thinking about the arts at Brooks and the plans for the new Arts Center, I thought about the long arc. We talked about stories this morning, and there's a story of Brooks, and I think it's connected to Yale University, where we both have associations in architecture, and I taught there. That's where Frank Ashburn studied. And Yale is known for the arts, Harvard is known for business. But Mr. Ashburn's vision here in founding and nurturing people like the Waterstones, who brought an extraordinary intellectual and artistic and theatrical presence here, symbolized by Sam Waterston's extraordinary career, is a tribute to Brooks. And I think of Yale having just received $150 million for a new art center that will transform that campus, and you're about to launch an $18 to $20 million art center here. The arts are the core of all things, not just theater and museums, but corporate America. One of my former students from Yale, Jeff Bukes, is a blues fan to the 10th degree, and he's now the CEO of Time Warner. But in his heart of hearts, the arts drive his vision. Architecture, every aspect of our life is about the arts. I forgot to flip through, but my vision of the arts here began after I left Brooks. Chip's classmate was my brother, Gray Ferris, who taught me how to use a camera in darkroom. And so I began to express myself through photography, and that led me to basically a career in folklore, which, as I said earlier, my parents and their friends thought I would never hold down a job interviewing blues singers and quilt makers, but I followed my heart, and I did get a job, and I've had a wonderful career. And Brooks gives you that kind of confidence that you can step outside of the grid and do the things that really are who you are, the everyday, daily worlds that are transformative, what Eudora Welty called the sense of place. And Brooks is all about that. Brooks is about giving you the finest education on earth. They don't care or try to focus you in any way. You just get out there and do your thing. And each of us have had a kind of interesting career that's zigzagged, but the arts are the heart of it, and they are what make you happy and fulfilled. And we're about to see, I think, a new chapter in Brooks's history that Frank Ashburn would be proud of. When I was teaching at Yale, I bumped into Mr. A on campus. He was on the board of trustees. And he said, "Bill, what are you doing?" I said, "I'm working on a documentary film with B.B. King." He said, "I'd love to see it." So we walked back to the studio and he looked at it. We had a wonderful visit. He said, "I'm very proud of what you're doing." And that is the kind of affirmation that Brooks gives each of us. It's a license to be who you want to be and to do the very best at it. And the Waterstones would be part of that sort of audience cheering you on. And an art center here will be transformational in where the arts are going with technology. The digital worlds are transforming what we think of as a museum, as an art gallery, as the world. And you have all of the elements to do that here. So that's sort of my piece. And I think bridging folklore, folk arts, folk music, the vernacular tradition with the high classical tradition is where Brooks can really make a difference. You can do something that the more traditional institutions are not capable of doing. And that's happening here as we speak. Thank you.
So, here's another little exercise. Everybody close your eyes. Try and close your eyes. Really. What do you hear? What do you see? What do you feel? Take a breath. Now you're wondering, how long is this going to go on? Be here now. It's that simple. You want to be an artist? Be here now, not somewhere else. All artists know this. It's the secret of all art. It's that simple. It also has to do with your health in the most profound way. We're learning this through neuroscience, all kinds of different therapies. My wife is going through cancer right now, which is not something I would wish on anybody. And she is actually meditating on a whole nother level, breathing, doing yoga on a whole nother level. So, this is the contradiction of art. A lot of people think it's about talent. I don't have any talent. I can't do that. For me, Mike King said, yeah, let's just do it. Let's not think about it too much. Let's just make art. And when he arrived here, when I was in the 10th grade, or what was that, 4th? I can't remember that. He all of a sudden, for me, the doors of yes just opened up. And when I went into that little funky art studio that you guys still have, it's still there, I think, right, Nate? It was just time stopped mattering. The clock disappeared. And I would say when you experience that, whether it's in football, field hockey, physics, math, astronomy, I don't know what, I don't care, reading a book, that is the moment of art. Okay, that's the moment where you're so in touch with that being present, with that thing, that you are in really a natural state of creating a relationship. So art is a verb. It's not a noun as much as it is a verb. So just what you were saying, it's about a process of actually making something, a connection, a relationship, pursuing something that interests you. So I stand up in front of the BB&N faculty almost all the time and say, we have 6 departments at our school: math, English, science, foreign languages, and history, and visual arts, and we're all equal, and we have been for 30 years. And I always say to the other faculty, art can connect to every one of the disciplines that you guys teach, if you think about it. Fibonacci curves, we'll get into that maybe in now. The history of artifacts. Why do you think ISIS is destroying artifacts? All over the Middle East. I don't know if you've been following that. Why do they do that? You know, why do they? Art's very powerful and very, very, very instrumental in expressing your idea. Right? Why do you think rap music was such a slap in the face when it first came in? I'm old enough to remember teaching ninth graders in 1992 when. Come on, you guys know your rap history. Who was big in 1991 or 2 or 3? Anybody know? That's a good paper. You should read it. Yeah, it's a good paper. I'm telling you, I'm sitting there doing still lives, and all of a sudden kids are coming in with iPods and listening to rap music, and all of a sudden everything changed in my studio at BB&M. It was a certain edge to the whole room. What happened? Music changed. Art's always changing. The Impressionists were considered obnoxious, show-off. Mr. Rathbone actually, Jill and Peter, what were they famous for? They were different. They weren't accepted.
Yeah, they certainly
What's that?
flying in the face of the traditional schools, and they were
They said,
outsiders.
yeah, they were outsiders, and in essence, all you really, I'm simplifying now, all you need to know about Impressionism is that for a good 200 or 300 years, art had told stories, often based on the Bible, or some idea of literature, and all of a sudden it was, nah, we don't care about that. Haystack's beautiful by itself. That's profoundly disturbing if you're living in that world. It seemed like meaningless, you know. What are you doing? So art is a very, very potent agent for change. And I would say, let me just throw it back to you, I've talked long enough, but the question would be, is how do you get over your fear right here in the room? You guys all put your hands up very tentatively, I don't know any artists. How do you get over your fear of making art? How do you get over your fear of playing sports? How do you get over your fear of actually learning math? How do you do it? It's not that dissimilar.
I think that's actually a great way to shift to thinking about what art is or what it isn't, is that, and it's actually, I think, maybe more about, like, shifting gears even a little bit more. And you guys are, what, 14, 15, something like that, 14-ish. And, you know, you're just kind of starting this big educational process. You're taking all these classes, they're all sort of prescribed, you know, it's like there's math, there's English, there's history, there's science, there's all these different things. And, you know, there's this sense of kind of what the path is supposed to be. You're supposed to do this, you're supposed to get A's, you're supposed to go to college, you're supposed to do all these things. And there's this whole lifelong linear trajectory that's kind of been set forward as these check marks. You're supposed to check off all these things. And there's not really any room in there for failure. And but the learning process in anything, regardless of whether or not it's, you know, accidentally letting the goal go through and scoring it yourself, or whether or not it's writing the paper about a subject matter that, you know, you try and make a case and you completely blow your argument and you get a D. It's like, or anything that seems to be out there. It's also about the process of, like, you know, what happens if you're playing the piano, because although I didn't do painting or drawing here, I played piano and flute, and because my mom and dad made me until I was 16, and then I quit. But I did it, and I got to play recitals, and the biggest fear was you'd get up there and you'd be playing by heart, and oh my God, what if I forget? Like, what happens if I forget? Which, of course, at some point you do. But every time you put yourself in a position where you're trying to do something that scares you, it's like, you know, they say what doesn't kill you make you better. What they don't tell you is it almost kills you. But every time that that's totally Conan O'Brien from the talk he gave at Dartmouth's commencement 4 or 5 years ago, which is a brilliant speech. If you haven't heard it, it's on YouTube. But he, you know, this idea of setting yourself up to challenge yourself also does mean occasionally failure. that's part of the creative process. So like when you try and make a drawing, or you're trying to paint, or you take a photograph, or you get lines on stage, or go to a presentation with a client, any of these things, every time you put yourself in a position to challenge yourself, you risk failure, but you also risk success. And regardless of what discipline or field it's in. And that's a really important part of learning. It's a really important part of succeeding in the future. And sometimes you'll find that the most important, like one of the most important challenges and potential failures I ever made for my professional career was in sports. When I was here, I played field hockey, squash, and lacrosse. I kind of sucked at all of them. I started rowing when I was 32. And suddenly discovered a sport I was actually really good at. And I raced my single in the head of the Charles after 3 years of rowing, and only rowing in eights. Scariest thing I've ever done in my life. It was a 10-inch wide, 26-foot long boat. By myself. Nobody else to be accountable to but me. And all I wanted to do was get from one end to the other and not flip. Really, that's all I wanted. When I got to the end, and I didn't do super badly, I was so thrilled, but I was so terrified of putting myself in that position. And I look back now, and doing that and making myself that scared was one of the most important things I ever did in my career. Because then I felt that I had gained this new level of confidence in my ability to put myself on the line. And then I could go to a client and try and tell them, yes, you need to do this. This is what you really need to do, and I know it's going to cost X amount of money, and these are the reasons you need to do it. And it gave this new level of confidence in what I was doing and why I was doing it. So sometimes those failures, or these attempts and these things you try and do, you scare yourself, and you may fail, you may not. They make you stronger in anything you're trying to do, and it's whether that's in sports, in music, in writing, in writing poems, sending it out to get published, whatever it is you're doing. Every time you try and do that, don't quit if it doesn't work out. You just keep trying to do it again and again and again, and it's like that's the creative process, regardless of whether or not it's art or anything else. So
I would say, honestly, it's passion. So if you do something that you really, really love, because the truth is you're going to fail anyway. So you might as well, you're not always going to fail. Please don't take that, just go home. No, you're not always going to fail. But everybody's going to fail at some point in their life. And you might as well be doing something you really, really love. And I'll tell you, different shows I've worked on, it's almost guaranteed to fail when people walk in and they're like, oh, it's the music of Elvis, we'll just put some dancing people up there, guaranteed. That is guaranteed to be a complete and utter failure because nobody has a passion behind it. Nobody has a real love for it. You look at a show like Mamma Mia and you think, oh, that's such a commercial show, that's not really that artistic. But I will tell you, the people that worked on that show, for them, they had a passion to tell that story, and they had a passion to work on those songs and to make that show sing and dance. And that is why it succeeded, and that is why people try and imitate it, and it doesn't succeed, because they don't have the love and the passion below and behind it. And shows I've worked on that I thought would be, guaranteed, big stars, it's totally going to make money, people are totally going to buy tickets, it's going to be fantastic, total failure. A show like Spring Awakening that you thought, oh my God, nobody's going to come see this show, it's way too controversial, it's way too scary, that's the one that, goes on and now, some people would say redefined musical theater. So, if you love it, trust it, and if you have a passion behind it, then you're going to do it well, and if it doesn't work, then at least you knew that you really tried, and you really fed your passion and did it, and maybe everybody else didn't see what you saw, but at least you can stand behind it and say, I really love doing that, and it's too bad that everybody else didn't see what I loved, but at least it has that integrity, as opposed to something that you're just like, well, it's what I'm supposed to do, and it checks all the boxes, so I'm sure it'll work. And then when it doesn't work, it feels really bad because you didn't it's just a horrible experience all around. So that would be my,
Yeah, this is not a risk-averse activity. It's risky making art. It should feel that way, actually. Bill, you want to talk some more?
Well, we talked this morning about stories, and I suggested that each of us has a story within us, and there's at least one novel within each of you, which is your personal story, like Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man was to Joyce, and Sons and Lovers to D.H. Lawrence, books I first read here at Brooks. And then there are the novels that follow if you are a serious writer. I think in looking at the arts, you have to think of your teachers here as allowing you to express your story in painting, on paper, in music. And you also have to learn to think of teachers. You can think of these teachers as giant oaks that you stand under for shelter. But there are a lot of other trees in the forest that are not at Brooks. And my father, who was a farmer, taught me that every person you meet can teach you a lesson. A mechanic, a farmer, whatever they do. So you need to think of stories as multiple stories, and to be able to weave together what we think of as vernacular and classical stories. When we look at the work of Rauschenberg and Jasper Johns, great artists who were influenced by the quilts that they saw as Southerners. We can look at music producers like T-Bone Burnett, who produced Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, and Cold Mountain, and with his wife, Callie Curry, she's directing and he is doing the music for Nashville. T-Bone plays all the keys on the piano, the black and white keys. He can draw from folk and classical. And that is what an art center at Brooks should be geared to do to the 10th degree, which is to allow you to think outside the box, that artists are not all in the Museum of Modern Art. There's some out on the streets of Manhattan and in the back roads of Mississippi painting signs that say fish for sale. And those are the paintings that Walker Evans gravitated to as a photographer and captured as art. So you begin to see art as life, and you frame a particular moment or image that you encounter, and you create art with that framing, with your camera, or your canvas, or your composition. So an education really is to teach you to think more broadly about the arts as low-hanging fruit. Wherever you are, look at things as art. Look across the landscape. I was with Charlie Hunt and Joan in their home yesterday. There was art everywhere on the wall, but outside, the garden, the growing things. For me, it was like a gallery of art inside and out. And that's how you should see your life, and begin to weave all that into what it is that you do. And it may not have anything to do, in quotes, with art. You could be a CEO of, as Jeff Creda, of Time Warner. A lot of that's business, but the greatest business leaders are, in their heart, artists. Robert Pittman, who dreamed up MTV, when people said you couldn't have an all-music channel. But he was an old rock and roll DJ, and in his heart of hearts, he thought it would work. And they allowed him to try it, and it ended up a great success. So the arts are the trump card in whatever you do. If you love them and carry them with you, they allow you to break out into new ground and new frontiers.
The other Steve, listen to us. Come on, no. Yeah, come on, you gotta finish this for us, all right? We're not finishing this for you. Now, let's do this again. How many of you really have, now that we describe what art is, who amongst you, just look around, you all know each other, who amongst you is artistic in this community? You stand, nominate each other to stand up. You got your hand up back there, right? Are you an artist? I am. Stand up, man. Come on, stand up. Who else?
Who wants to stand?
Right now, the rest of you would fail my ninth grade class. Because I absolutely believe every one of you is an artist. I really mean that. I really mean that. You think I'm joking. I've spent 30 long years seeing kids do amazing things when they just have the passion, the courage to overcome their fears, and they are given the tools, the process to actually make something. All right? It's a lot of work. You got to care about it. Just like sports. You just, sorry, you got to shoot the free throws. I was captain of the basketball team, though. Don't ask me what our record was. I beat us by about 40 points. But the thing is, I really believe this, that every person needs to find something in their life that's creative. Without it, you really, it's just, sorry, sawdust, you know? You're just chewing on sawdust. You need to be able to create something every day. And the cool thing is, and then I'll shut up, is you have no idea where you're going. Do you understand that? I really sincerely mean this. You have no idea, and I can speak from research and experience. I teach these kids, you know, and I find out 10 years later they come back and unbelievable. Guys working at Disney doing animation. Mindy Kaling, you know Mindy Kaling? She was a student of mine. She hardly said a word. See, here's the thing. Joe Kennedy, our fine, nice, congressional leader. Really cool looking. Cool. He was a twin, and his twin brother was awesome at art, and Joe was a little scrawny co-captain of the football team. Can you believe that? Back in the day when we weren't very good at football. And the thing is, he got good at art. He had to find what he was good at, actually, and it was singing. You know? His brother could work with clay. I mean, it was that simple. So the point is, you got to find your medium. But don't give up on yourself at this point in life. I mean, this school, that's the message of Brooks. By the way, Mr. Packard, where are you? I really commend you. I have gone back to BBN and said, that is a great school motto. By the way, what's the school motto?
Mission.
Mission. What's the school mission?
At Brooks School, we follow and that's what the school mission.
Good. Yes.
As Brooks Schools provide most meaningful educational experiences students will learn in their lives.
All right, say that about twice as loud. I am challenging everybody in this room. This will not be the most significant experience in your life if you do not have arts in it. I promise you that. You need to have art in that experience somewhere. Okay? Anything else?
You want to
add?
Well, just as a, advice. I'm not a psychologist and I'm not I don't study cognitive science or anything, but you hear about, the human brain is a constantly growing and a changing organism, and that it doesn't really mature until you're in your early 20s. I didn't know how, when I was here, I could not draw. I could not represent anything. I couldn't do that. I taught myself how to draw when I was in my early 20s. So if it's not really gelling right now, it's not the end of the path. Like, you're just getting started. You've got, at 14, it's like, you've got decades to figure this out. And finding the thing that is a creative outlet or a passion or whatever it is you're gonna fall in love with and do, you may not have any idea what it is now. You probably don't have any idea what it is now. And if you do, you're incredibly lucky. But it takes time. I mean, that's what high school and college are for, is to figure it out. You're not supposed to figure it out. And honestly, people are like, I know what I'm gonna do when I grow up. I mean, leave yourself this breath to figure it out. Leave yourself the time to explore. Take classes you don't have any idea what they mean. Take things because you hear it's a really good professor. Take things because somebody else said it was cool, and if you like it, that's great. If you don't, then just try it again. But it's okay not to know what it is that you're passionate about, or not to know how to do something yet. You've still got tons of time to figure it out. And you can be doing that when, you're old and in your 20s. And you've got, just don't ever forget to take risks, and don't forget to keep trying new things, even if it seems like you're supposed to already know what you're doing. Because the reason they call it commencement is because that's when you're starting. So not just high school commencement, but like college commencement. You're starting something then. And use all the time before then to figure out all the stuff you don't know yet, and then spend the rest of your life figuring it out.
Right, because what you're doing is building as diverse a skill set as possible now. So what we've been talking about is that it's all about communication and problem solving, and that may serve you if you go on to be an investment banker or a lawyer or a doctor or an actor or whoever you decide to be, but that will always serve you.
The other thing is, if you end up in hedge funds making millions and millions of dollars, those are the people that fund the arts. So even if give money, Arts Center over here. I'm sure there's some production that needs support. But even if you end up, it doesn't mean that you have to be a career in the arts, because a career in finance or in law or in philanthropy supports the arts, and that's where that having the understanding and the appreciation of museums and the theater and the symphony is all, somebody has to fund all that.
Well, and it does make you a more interesting person, I will
Yes.
tell you that much too.
So, do you have any questions for any of us, or what do you think? Have we said enough? I think we might have said enough. You've been very patient. Thank you for your good argument.
Chip, we should, not for those of us who are here at our 50th.
Yeah.
This, I'm all hearing all of this. It doesn't feel new for Brooks. I mean,
No.
we got the class coming after we got Sidney Lawrence here. We live in Washington, he's a big force at the Hershore, and he's got great paintings, some of them hanging around here.
I love the coffee.
Yeah, above the coffee.
And it wasn't done when I was 19, imaginary.
And the class before us, we got Rathbone, whose sister was a major force. Recovering from some Brooks dances, she became a major force at the Friends of Washington. And so the question is, when they write the history of 20th, 21st century art, why did Rathbone's father or Lawrence's parents send their kids here? No. Yeah, but, well, I mean, there's a space. You'd be interested to know what Harry Rathbone's conversation was with Mr. Ashburn. They said my son in your school, or my father. He said 4 sons. And he was a big art collector. In fact, I think he paid the tuition here by trading up his Paul Clays and stuff. So why did they come here? I mean, I'm sure some of them go to BB&M, but...
Well, I think one of the things that, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but I certainly remember it this way. These are really hard years for a lot of you, right? Yeah. And they're also very formative years. Yeah. And there's a community, whether you're aware of it or not, you're going to be a big part of the community, and all the things that you do every day are probably why your parents want you to be here, not somewhere else. Because they're all really, over time, you build relationships. I haven't seen a lot of my classmates in 25 or 50 years. Bingo, it's like we go back in time. And you will never lose that. They're formative. And when you make something together, something other than jumping in the lake, which I did, got in trouble for it. That was fun. Oh my God, that was fun. And Mr. Ashburn said, those of you who have dropped in the lake, come up to my office and speak to me. And I was an idiot. I just went up and I don't know that how many other people did that?
We all came in right behind you.
Yeah, right. And then, there's a lot of energy. That's what art is it takes all your energy and just funnels it somewhere. Anyway, thank you for reminding me of that. You should be up here instead of me.
I think that one of the things, which I'm sure you do, Chip, is as a teacher all these years, which I found here with Mrs. Watterson and Mike King, was and art here at that point, if you're not particularly good at math and science and other things, that was kind of a refuge where you go to your art class. And one of the things that was the best for me was the kind of encouragement you got from them.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter whether, you were a good artist. I was in art class, not a good artist. But Mike King, I remember in one of the reports he wrote, he said, Peter doesn't really seem to have any native ability in drawing and paint, but he does use more paint than anybody else. At least there's a positive that I use more paint, that's something good that nobody else seems to do. So you came away thinking, okay, I can't draw, but I'm using a lot of paint. And I don't know, just the way he framed it and the way you felt when you went into that art studio, it didn't matter whether you actually were talented. You tried your best, you did your self-portraits, you did your still life, and it was, I think, if everybody's encouraged or given the opportunity to express themselves, and in some way, even in a kind of an odd way like that, rewarded or complimented, it's important to your learning, and as you said, being willing to express yourself and not hold back because you're afraid of what you might produce. Go ahead and do it. Who knows? You will learn as you go, as you said, and eventually you may become able to be a good draftsman and so on. All these things are later, but very important to have the encouragement, which I'm sure you
19 moments, just do it.
I want to add really briefly, real quick.
Yeah.
Just apropos what you all were talking about. Oddly, appropriately, our big project for our 50th next year is to do an exhibition on co-curating, Jim Nash, co-curating exhibition over there at the Lehman Arts Center called Class of '66 Creatives. And it's like both object makers and also some other people who've done creative things and we're kind of looking at actors. But there are a lot of people who came out of the Class of '66 who now come up to like 21 people are going to participate, and that's almost half the class. So they consider themselves artists, big and small. That they're really, anyway, it came out of here, presumably, but just interesting.
Yeah, that's great.
I would like to turn the tables to the students and hear, why do you think the arts are important, and what do you think about the plans for a new arts center?
What should it have in it? I bet a lot of technology, right? I would just say, be careful. Word processor is a computer, laptop computer is to writing what certain kinds of technology are to see. Just be careful, it's not the answer, it's a tool. But yeah, what should be there? I'm really excited they're building a new auditorium, possibly, hopefully, right? And then, look, you got a question?
I think we should pianos.
Pianos?
Yes.
Good. There's nothing cooler than hearing people just play pianos all the time. Performing arts is an ensemble. It's like a team, And music is the same way. Visual arts is a little more, the guy all alone. It doesn't have to be, but it often can be. The architecture is definitely a collaborative experience, but think visual arts typically a team sport, as one of my graduate school professors said. It's more like, or if it is, it's more like the Olympic high dive. You're going to get your personal best, you know? That's what it's more like. But architecture, you cannot do it alone, right?
No,
Theater, you cannot do it alone.
it's a myth.
Music you can play alone, but my mother was a pianist, my father was a Wall Street lawyer, who then got out of being a lawyer and became a city planner. He cared about people, not just really wealthy people, and that was his mission in life. But I grew up with a mother who was a pianist, and she said, you know, I never can play chamber music with other people, I can't be part of it, because I'm a pianist. So, anyway, I got a feeling, guys, that it's noon, and you're...
Yes, it is time.
You see, I am a humane teacher. I understand 10th graders.
Thank you all.